So I was clubbing to dance.
Were you taking alcohol?
Yes. I was drinking. In fact, I drank a lot in my life. Oh my gosh. That is why I cannot drink anymore. Even if it wasn't about being born again, let me just tell you, I think I saturated. Hiyo nilikunywa. Acha tu niseme ukweli.
Pearl Radio, the home of fresh and classic hits.
So who is Kalekye Mumo?
Who is Kalekye Mumo? I always say that question is so difficult to answer because I am a child of God. I am a daughter. And I am a friend, I'm an auntie. Those are the things that matter to me first before we say my work. Because whenever somebody asks you who you are, your answer should not be your work. It should be the things that you are given by God for free.
Yes.
And that for me is being loved by him, being a daughter to a lovely mom and dad, being a sister, being an auntie, such kind of things. But other than that, I mean, I've been a media personality, a media professional. I think it's going on 20 years. Yeah, close to 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
Some of us, you are not even halfway there, but we thank the
So
Lord.
if you just turned 20, welcome to Kalekye Mumo. Imagine YouTube and Google is your friend.
Yeah. Anyways, Kalekye, even as we do a background check, just want to know that, Kalekye, where were you born?
Where was I born? In Nairobi, my city, my town.
When in Nairobi?
I was born in Nairobi. But hey, let me ask you a question. Why do people behave like it's a crime if you are born in Nairobi? What is the crime?
Because you have this notion that you have to come from shags at least.
And then you start hard.
You start hard.
My parents did that already. So then they came from shags. They started hard. And I was born in Nairobi, but raised like I was in shags. Because the way my parents brought us up was that things will be done so that you learn how to work for yourself. We had cows in the middle of Nairobi, chicken, and before you go to school, you tend to them. And
you have cows in Nairobi?
Yeah, we had cows, milking cows.
Where?
Milking cows.
Where in Nairobi specific?
Wayaki Way, just, Kabasarian Avenue. First of all, it's Avenue. So all my neighbors were Indians and white people.
Yeah. There,
but we had cows. And we used to milk them. And we used to sell the milk.
For real?
Yeah. Yeah. So being born in Nairobi is not it's now you have a city life in your home. Your parents are the ones who bring you up, and they decide how to bring you up no matter which city you're in. And how that goes is really about them. Yeah.
You mentioned about siblings. So Kwani, how many are you? And are you the firstborn?
Okay. No, sorry. I'm the first girl, which sometimes in some homes makes you like the firstborn. But I have 3 older brothers and a younger sister. So we're 5 of us. Yeah. And so growing up with 3 older brothers, as you would imagine, they were born really back to back. And then there was a 3-year gap between the last boy and myself. So I was like their toy plaything that they didn't understand. I'm a girl. They are like, we don't like girls. So you can imagine what that kind of growing up was like. But we're very close. And I kept asking for a sister, but my sister was born 10 years, 10 days after me. I like to say after I've suffered for 10 years. Yeah. That's when she came. Yeah.
Wow, that is so amazing. So even as we talk about, even before because people knew Kalekye more back in radio, when you were working in radio, but we want to know your story before that. So how was the upbringing, everything, and also your school life?
Okay. Like I said, I grew up in Nairobi, off Wayaki Way, and I think being the first girl and the last one for like 10 years, I had a bit of a sickly childhood, just a little bit, where I had a problem with one of my legs. I have a hip ailment, and then I got a skin condition, which is like, I'll call it, it's a condition, not a disease. It's called psoriasis. So that cropped up like by the time I was 4. And so which meant I was being taken care of more than the boys, because in and out of hospital, it's a condition no one understands. Remember, there was no internet. And everyone was like, this is like eczema, but it's not quite like eczema. And so that was, my childhood has a lot of going to seek medical attention for my skin. And then I was in I was in State House Primary for standard 1 and 2. Then I went to Parklands Primary for standard 3. My parents were trying all this while to get me to Loreto Convent Musongari, which was closer to home, and my brothers were in St. Mary's. And so I got in standard 4. And so I was brought up very well with lots of English, because at the time Loreto had nuns, and most of our teachers were either British Goans or white, and the English I got from way back then. I think I even, by the time I went to nursery school, I had learned English. I was blessed with the fact that we had a family friend who came to stay with us during the time of Idi Amin. She ran away from Uganda. She was a teacher, but she had trained here and Makerere, and so she's the one who taught me English. So by the time I think I'm the only one in our home, by the time I went to school, I could speak English, because in our home you speak Kikamba. I'm telling you, just because you were born in Nairobi was not a reason for my parents to bring you up as if you don't have a home and you don't come from somewhere. So we spoke Kikamba until we went to school. But I was lucky because she stayed with us just before I started school, and so I learned English from her, and I loved the language. And by the time I went to Msongari, the English now, I found that I could thrive there. It's always been stronger in the arts and acting. I was acting, I think, my first lead role in a musical by the time I was 9. And so that's been my character, my life.
So were you a good guy in school? Maybe you were that rebellious?
I think in school I was very reserved around, and respected the rules. My mom used to say she didn't understand when the teachers say I'm really good and really polite, because at home I'm making noise. so that's
you are an extrovert.
I think I like to say ambivert, because depends on the ambience. Sometimes I just want silence. I don't want to talk. It's not understandable by many, but because my job then became talking, it happens that, I don't know about you, after you've been here on air for how many hours? Do you want to talk when you go home? Me, I normally don't want to talk. In fact, I don't want anyone telling me anything. So, I know you're married, so I'm imagining sasa upeane story gani. Umepeana yote. Ukusikiza radio. Uko ndio nimepeana story.
I tell my wife, you want content, just listen
to me. I'll talk to you there. I'll say hi there. I mean, just don't ask me, man. So I think the ambience for me is what it's like. High school, I left Loreto Musongari after Form 1, because my parents now thought, this acting and all this drama and all these things you're doing, you've been doing them for long, it's been great, but guess what, now you have to get serious, as if it leaves you. This is something that I think today's children are more blessed, because creativity is a little bit more accepted than it was back then, because I'm talking about the 80s into the 90s. I was in high school in the early 90s. I said early 90s, 20-year-old, early 90s, work with me. So the parents that I'm talking about, my parents now, my mom is in her late 70s, my dad is in his late 80s. I mean, they were not understanding what you're talking about, saying that you want to be on radio. And I knew I wanted to be on radio by the time I was 8. I used to listen to VOK then, the only station we had, the Voice of Kenya, which is now KBC. And then I used to want to be like those guys speaking inside that transistor radio that I used to. I used to sneak it from my dad when he's not there and listen, And so that became what I wanted to do. And so sending me off to boarding school from Form 2, I ended up in a school in Ukambani. And what saved me again is I was fluent in my Kikamba. So
actually, you mentioned about Kikamba.
Yes.
There's a guy who's called Shadi. I never knew Kalekye was a last born and babies. And Kakiri Saya.
I was a last born for 10 years, guys. The title was taken away after 10 years. So I'm not a last born.
I think I said that isiamini anaweza ongea Kikamba. Aongea kidogo.
Pio, ulokwenda manana kanaine na Kikamba no. Ngolie kolio. Ningo songea. Or you. I mean, really. Just because I can speak the English doesn't mean I can't speak the Kikamba. And that was what, again, the girls assumed when I joined the boarding school. what I didn't know was Sheng. I couldn't speak Sheng because where I grew up, that was not something we spoke. Sheng had just started becoming a thing, believe it or not. Those who may not remember, Sheng had just started becoming a thing that is around 1989, 1990. So I'm going to Form 1 in 1991. I've come from a school where somebody would tell you, Sasa, and you go, oh my God, what is that? That's where I'd come from. Okay, that's where I'd come from. As a school, I'd come from.
Yeah.
Then now I go to Boni Girls in Ukambani.
Yeah.
And they're speaking. First of all, the English is hurting my ears because the sentences have been phrased so badly.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a grammar person.
Yeah.
So when somebody stands up, I remember. I remember the dome captain.
Yeah.
I'm new, I'm new. The dome captain stands up and says, you people, you listen here. And I'm like, excuse me, you can't put two principal people in one sentence. You can't say you people and then you listen. I need kulapano. Fresh. Yeah.
Napelekea Kiingereza ya.
So they used to call me Catherine Kasavuli, like sneering and jeering in class. Like the teachers liked me because I could speak great English. But the students were like, you've come to outshine us? You've come to show us what? Why are you showing off? And I'm not showing off. It's how I speak. Yeah. And so, in the background, you hear, Catherine Kasavuli. And then they speak in Kao. Then I answer them. Then they shtuka. They're like, what? So that kind of got me some graces that now we can be friends because I know the language, English, but I am Kao. Yeah. Don't try me. Yeah. And that was high school.
So when you finished high school, you knew actually you wanted to pursue radio?
I knew when I was actually in primary school. So I knew as I went through high school where I wanted to go. And so when I left and I asked for a degree in communications, I think at the time it was Daystar had just started the degrees for communication, and it was foreign to my parents. It was like, what's that? And my brothers, two of my brothers were at USIU at the time, so I was told, listen, that's where you're going. You're going to go to USIU and you're going to find a degree there. And I'm like, but there's nothing. They don't have communications. They didn't have any journalism or anything that time. That is the year 1996. I'm supposed to choose. I finished Form 4 in 94. So 95.
1994.
Yeah.
I know some.
Where were you? Were there some people who are not born? Are they here? Say hello, wave.
I know some people. I know someone.
Yeah. So at that, you can imagine now, 95, you've been told to do packages. I've even been pelekwad to do accounts here. What was it called? KCA had just started. They had a small little office in Westlands. Yeah. At Mpaka House or something. I've started, and I wasn't good in math, so why you take him to do an accounting class? You know how parents just want you to do something that they heard is what people are getting good jobs for, not paying attention to, is this good for my child? What is my child good at? My generation of parents did not understand that. And so I went, they paid the money. It was wasted because I learned nothing. I learned nothing. Diploma, nothing. I learned nothing. I didn't care for it. I didn't know what was going on. Numbers and that stuff, it doesn't work for me. So then now I'm still debating and negotiating for my degree in communications. A whole year passes. 95 passes. 96 comes, and now they're angry that I have not made a decision, or we're not at a place where we're agreeing, and they tell me, look, we are paying for this. Yeah. We even did a fundraiser because at that time my parents couldn't afford to take us to university at the same time. My brothers and I were going almost at the same time, and my dad had just retired, and so they did a fundraiser. So now my dad says we cannot fundraise, and then you start negotiating. You're going to go where we are paying, so you go there and find a degree and do it. And so I went to USIU and I looked at the degrees. I saw finance, CG business, what? I said, never, cannot be me. And then I saw psychology. I started debating psychology. And there's this other thing called international relations. I'd never heard of it. It was still new at the time, I think 2 years in. And I said to myself, this one that I don't know, because psychology, me, I know people. Yeah. I'm good with people. Yeah. So what will they teach me? And I don't want to be a doctor. Let's do this one called international relations. I don't know what it is, but let's do it. And that's how I picked my degree. coincidentally, it was the best decision of my life because it teaches you how to think, strategize. There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of analysis. And so that is still a tool I use today as an interviewer, and I used it in radio. So that research element to prepare for a show, I used it there.
How did you end up on radio?
Wow. So as you hear, I wanted to be on radio way before. I knew that was something I wanted to study for it, but didn't get the opportunity. And so when I graduated in the year 2000, when I left, then I kind of handed my parents the degree and said, there's the paper.
Yes.
It's been real. And I started off, of course, you'll do your internship because you want to get your degree. So I actually should be working in anything that's political science or as a diplomat or, anything foreign affairs. That's where I should be. So I started off at the Turkish embassy.
Yeah.
I did my internship there and I was offered a short contract. And I'm sure they would have hired me, but I was bored out of my mind. I was completely bored because it's not really what I wanted. I could do it, but if your heart is not in it, you really won't stay for long. Or at least if you're like me and your heart is very set on where you want to be and God has already put it in your heart that this is what you need to do. And so after about a year or so, I got a call from Homeboys, the manager that time, Mike Rabah, and he tells me, look, we had done some work together while I was in campus. I was in the Student Affairs Council. I was running the welfare committee, which meant all events went through me. So I have event organization skills like you never before. This is another gift I have. So then he knew me from childhood because he was very good friends with a cousin of mine. And so he says he's coming and he's setting up a small office at the mall. Come, let's do this. And so in my head I say, why not? Because I might learn something from them. And they had just started a show, the first DJ show on an FM station at Capital FM. And so in my head I thought to myself, if I work for them, one day they'll send me to go and take a CD, because that's how we used to deliver music, to the station. And when I'm there, I'll speak and they'll hear my amazing voice and ta-da! They'll give me a job. Wrong. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Now that is 2001. And I stayed there until probably the end of 2001 before I realized this is not happening. I used to send my CV, go try to record demo tapes on tape, TDK tape, which by the time you buy a C90, you have spent so much money that you don't have. And my salary was 8,000 bob, which was annoying my mom, that I have graduated and I have come to do work for DJs who call themselves homeboys. So meaning in her head, she's like, they're lazy and they work at night in discotheque. And those are the people you're telling me you're working for. And I'm like, nobody sits in an office. I manage them. And she's like, there's nothing. So she used to tell people I don't work. I don't have a job. I remember meeting a family friend. At that time, nimetoka job, atinaenda ni buy vitu. I was still living at home. Buy things, go take some shopping home. And then she tells me, oh my gosh, how you your mom tells me you don't have a job. Aki niliachana nayo shopping. Nilikasirika, nilisema hiyo shopping sipeleki nyumbani na nikaondoka nikasema what is life. And so anyway, from there I used to send CVs. I used the fax machine at the office. I send all these things. No response. And then I had like two family friends who were working there. And the assumption that because you know someone who works at a radio station, you can get a job there, or they should, entitled that they should get your job. Uko si kwao. Hii station si yako, si ya baba yako, ama wewe ndio unaisongea. But kama kama umeandikwa, there's nothing much you can do. You can only give somebody the path, like send your content to here, it will go through the process. And it never worked. And so I then meet another couple that came to do interviews at our studio, and they were running a studio, like a production studio in Karen. And we interacted with them for 3 days. They're interviewing people who've actually studied communications.
Yes.
And they've come from KMTC. KMTC that time was offering diplomas. It hadn't even started offering degrees yet. And, they'd interview them, and the space is relatively small, no much bigger than your studio and maybe, your production area. So I can hear the conversations as they sit on the desk there.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they'd ask me, how'd it go? And I'd give my feedback just openly. At the end of it, they asked me, would you like to work for us? I said, oh, okay, what's the offer? They said, yeah, we don't have much money, but we're going to train you in everything production. We just need someone to manage our studio, and we'll train you. It was a couple, a Kamba lady who happened to realize that our families know each other, and a British guy, her husband. And so I had been begging to be taught technical all that time. I'd been saying, if at least I can't be in the radio, let me learn the other things. So by the time I am called for the job, if my voice is not enough, I know more than just to speak. Okay, that was my thought process. So I was begging them to teach me technical, and they told me, no, but you're a girl. At Homeboys, they told me, you're a girl, so you just manage. Kazi ya cables na nini si yako. And they refused me to learn. So when the opportunity came and these guys asked, and believe me, I used to ask like every day. So Mike says, yeah, in fact, she's been bothering me. If you want to teach her, take her. And I left a job that was paying me 8,000 for a job paying me 10,000 all the way in Karen, which meant all of that 2,000 was going on bus fare. Because I lived on Wayaki. So hakuna kitu nimedu hapo.
Yeah.
But it was a good move, because then I got trained on technical stuff, and I actually became a sound engineer. Within 3 years, I was producing, sound for advertisements, for films. There were some Hollywood films that were recorded here that I got to do. Did some radio theater dramas, and it was okay. And now I'd started to give up on the dream for radio and started to say, this is not bad, because it's something new, it's interesting, I'm getting to learn how to use my voice. That British man was a really good sound man. It's called Lee Smith. He's now back in the UK, and he taught me everything I know on how to run a desk, how to control sound, how to edit, how to soundscape. I can do it. Right? I can do it. By the time I left, I was working on Pro Tools, top of my game. And so from Rough Cuts, I moved to another company, another NGO called Mediva. If you ever heard of Mediva, we did Tazama, we did Agenda Kenya. So I was the sound engineer on those now as myself, because, I went to a place where I was hired as a sound engineer. And so you can imagine, I left campus in 2000. Now it's 2005 hapo katikati. Nishasahau hii story ingine. I'm used to 14-hour work days. I'm used to some days, some weeks, if you have lots of productions, you work 7 days a week. In fact, my only exciting time was to go and get my hair done on a Saturday. Even Sunday, I never used to go to church. I was at work. Like, that's just it. And so when the contracts there were now the NGO, it's about you get funding, then you'll take a break, maybe 3 months, get funding, like that. So now we've just gotten funding. We've been on a break. Nothing's happened. We've gone back. We've come back to do Agenda Kenya. There's competition on the Capital FM Jam, the drive show. It used to be called the Jam with Marcus and Leo, and they say that they're doing a Radio Idols. It was the first time. I mean, we knew American Idols, the musical, but then we didn't know this. And so my friend calls me and she's bothering me. She's saying, see, you just send your CV. Imagine they're asking for CV. I told her 5 years. Five. nimetuma.
Yeah.
Wakitaka waitafute hapo kwa pile. She bothered me until the last day when you're supposed to submit, and that time it's like going to 5 o'clock. Remember, we have mobile phones that had just started, and now I see, I know she's bothering me, sort of switched off. So she's been calling the landline. My boss is like, take this call and talk to this person, because they can't keep calling here. And I'm like, what? She's like, just send. They're closing this thing at 7 p.m. It's now 5:30. Just send. So I take my CV. It's got sound jobs that I've worked on between 2002 and 2005 middle hapo. Nikatuma. I didn't edit it to suit the job. You're supposed to edit your CV to suit the job.
Yes.
I didn't. It was 10 pages long.
10 pages.
Yeah, because every sound job you do as a sound engineer, you indicate. If I worked on something for Pearl Radio Imaging, it will be there, Pearl Radio Imaging, this is the year. And you see, it could be one job. Then I go and work for another company, agency, film touch, So it's 10 pages because I'd worked on a lot of things, right? They called me because they couldn't believe a person of my age. I think at the time I was 28. How can you have a CV with 10 pages? Who are you? Come. So it wasn't my voice. It wasn't kujuana. It was the fact that nilikuwa nimechoka.
Wow.
Nilikuwa nimechoka. Nikatumana tu. And my email said, your search ends now. Call me. Like I didn't care. Like I really didn't think I was going to be called. And so when they call me, I go the day for the audition. We've just got a new funding.
Yes.
What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to do a location visit and test our sound and what ahead of Agenda Kenya, the first one. Kalekye is just there looking at the time. The time is going. Show ndio hiyo inaenda kuanza. I called Marcus and that day I lied. I just said, listen, my mom is sick. I have to sort this out. Give me another date. They're like, the date's already set because we've already chosen the contestants. So if you miss this one, then the only day we can give you is a public holiday, and people don't listen to radio on public holidays. I said, imagine just give me the public holiday. And they gave me a public holiday. I think it was in May that time. And I went. And that day when I went on air, the guy who was the head of the biggest agencies, and advertising agencies, they have a lot of say in radio. He had a hangover. He was driving to go and buy food. He stopped and drove and came to the station to see who is this, whose voice is this.
Wow.
And you see, people were voting. So even if he came, it didn't matter. People voted. I got to the top 5 and I won. I won a little TV, Meka Fast 14-inch TV. Won another ka phone hapo hata sita ilikuwa Siemens ama ilikuwa nini hata sijui. And yeah, and an opportunity to train. That was what you were winning. It wasn't an opportunity to be on air. First they would train you, and that meant the graveyard shift from midnight to 5 in the morning. And I did it, and then I finished, and then like, okay, so now huku kwingine contract imeisha. So that time I was working morning, then I go and do the show midnight to 5 because I wanted to try this thing. So you imagine you've worked a full day from 9 in the morning to 5 p.m, taken a break, midnight you come, you work, midnight to 5, go freshen up, go back to work.
Where?
Yeah.
You've rest for how many hours now?
What is rest? So you are young, Jitume.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how I got on, and so from there, after a couple of months, we weren't agreeing because I was now called back. I did the training, finished. Then they had a problem with their presenters in-house fighting. They called me and said, you have to come on breakfast. I'm like, breakfast? So I thought, I'm getting a salary. They were putting me on an intern's pay, and I stayed on that intern's pay for so long. I said to myself, by month 2, I'm like, and I'm doing this show for breakfast. I know what a breakfast show means.
Yes.
I don't think you guys are treating me right. And so I decided to leave. And as I left, I emailed to Kiss FM and I said, look, I've been on air, maybe you've heard me, and I'm looking to move. Call me. So they waited, I wrote on the last day before I left. They waited for 2 days. They heard I'm not there. They called me. Then they tell me, lakini hatuna show, tuko na news. News. News.
Yeah.
News means you are running the newsroom, and that time, these days guys are here, they have producers and and you do the show. You go, you present the news, you manage the journalists, you do everything, and you do sports, which I knew nothing of. But again, the argument that I had, and that my eldest brother really encouraged me, and he said, this is the biggest station in the country at the moment. You have a foot in the door. Go in. When you are there, fight for what you want. And that's what I did.
Wow.
That's what I did.
Wow.
For 8 months, I fought until for the first 4 months, in 4 months, I got a Saturday show. That was when I was put together with Shafi and Roy, and it was just insanity because they'd come late every day, and me, I'm fighting for my life to get a primetime show. Then they're just hanging about. And then eventually we were given a show 8 months later. And that's how I got on. It wasn't easy.
Wow. I see the favor of God, because imagine it was just on a holiday and then someone would actually spot you.
Yeah.
At what point did you even realize that I want to give my life to Jesus Christ?
So here's a funny thing. I mean, I've always been afraid and revered God.
Yes.
Right? And I got born again when I was 12 or 13, somewhere there. And I gave my life to Christ. I used to attend Nairobi Baptist was our home church, and I was, baptized there as a teenager, and it was fantastic. And then something happened by the time I was now being transferred to boarding school that just changed my perspective. And I was like, we had a major fight with my mom about which church should we be going to. And I don't know, now as an adult, I look at it and say probably my mom had gone through some church hurt and she was not feeling Nairobi Baptist anymore.
Yes.
She had gone through something, I believe now as an adult, that I understand it. At that time I didn't understand, but we've been going here. You should be happy. I wake up, I want to go to youth church. Youth church is at 8:15, so that means nataka kutoka mapema nipatie bus fare. Ni kesi. Umeisikia kesi ya kupewa bus fare uende kanisa?
Yeah.
Nimesikia kesi za kwenda movie, kesi za kwenda kuhang out. Mimi napewa kesi because I want to go to church. So I started thinking, this God that I love, and then now these people you've given me who are my parents, who are supposed to be in charge of me, and now the ones telling me I can't go to church, or that we're having an argument about me going to church. What's that? So I started getting annoyed, because as it is, when you don't understand that people are just people and people's reaction is not your relationship with God. I was young. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I started to rebel and say, I'm not going to church anymore. What's the point? Why am I going? And so around about that time I stopped going. Then I went to high school and there was CU and everything, but already roho yangu ilikuwa inasema moto wako wote mbali, because sijaelewa kwa nini I am saying that I love you and I want to serve you, but then I'm being told by the people who are responsible for me, and honor your parents is a commandment.
Yes.
Are the ones who are giving me a hard time. So even as I went to high school and CU, I was just like, I was there but not there. And so that's how I started to fade away. I still feared God. I still cared. I still occasionally would pray, of course, when trouble and help. And I knew that knowing God and being a Christian is important. But I believe that the walk was definitely not the same. And so by the time I finished high school, now exposed to the world includes partying, alcohol, and everything in between. And so I start to enjoy life. I'm going for all the parties. I get to campus, I start drinking. But the one thing I was taking care of was my purity. If you are not immersed in the word and you're not in the right spaces, you're not going to church, so it means your friends are not of church. You start to despise many things about having to even go to church. So I remember by the time I now cleared high school, and I'm like, why am I going to church? First of all, on Sunday, because I've told you, we were doing housework like normal kids from Shags.
Yes.
So on Sunday, in fact, all my holidays, I walk in as the help walks out. I see you when you're going back to school. She's gone. Mimi sasa ndio nafanya kazi. My brothers are older, so they finished Form 4 when I was finishing Standard 8. So they're in campus, or they're doing small jobs, whatever. So I'm the one in the house, top to bottom, clean the house, cook. My dad used to come home for lunch every day. So that was the mood. So on Sunday, same thing. Now I finished high school and I'm home debating about campus. And on Sunday, the help leaves. I have to make breakfast. By the time I finish making breakfast, and there will be no dirty dishes left at tutaosha baadaye in Mrs. Mumo's house. Nioshe vyombo. They've already entered the car. They are leaving me. So I literally said, then nobody even wants me to go to church. Now at this point, my mom's like, oh, you need to be going to church. Why are you going to church? So I'm looking at her like, wait, that's hypocrisy. Thank you, but no thank you. So I now stopped going to church. So me, Sunday, I used to take care of the family's meals and I sleep. That's it. I never used to go. And I didn't go to church for a very long time. Not because I didn't know or revere God, but the hypocrisy now of my mom now saying, you need to go to church, you need to be closer to God. And I'm like, wait a minute, you stopped me from going to church. Because I didn't understand church hurt. I had never experienced it. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't stayed in the church long enough with any adult understanding, because I left much earlier, right? And so that continued until, I've now finished campus. Like I've said, now we're partying, but I would take care of myself. Like I know that I never went beyond limits, also because I have older brothers, and so there are certain things that they had talked to me about. We were in the same campus, which meant that everybody was afraid to talk to me because of my older brother. So there were certain things that remained contained, but I loved to dance. I loved my music, and that's all I'd want to do, to go out to dance. And so I was clubbing to dance.
Were you taking alcohol?
Yes, I was drinking. In fact, I drank a lot in my life. Oh my gosh. That is why I cannot drink anymore. Even if it wasn't about being born again, let me just tell you, I think I saturated. Hiyo nilikunywa, acha tu niseme ukweli. I find that one thing that happens when you get born again and you're a Christian, you're afraid of your past. But the Lord says you should never be afraid of your past.
True.
It is your past. And that's what makes the testimony. You have to have a past to have a present that is different and a new story for you to be able to have a testimony. So hiding and saying that I never used to, I'd be lying, and that is a sin. So I'm not going to do it. I drank a lot. And
but you were not an addict.
No, I wasn't an addict. I was just a party animal. Like where the party's at, I'm there. I was the life of the party, and I used to love to dance. I'm a dancer. I was a dancer. The first Kenyan all-girl dance crew, I was part of that crew. We were in USIU, and we were dancing, and we danced for many stages, and for very many presidents and ambassadors and things. So if there was music, I was there, and I could take my classes seriously in campus and party when we've closed school, or when there's a moment to. But I was not that person who would say I'm not even going to study. That was not happening, because I enjoyed my campus life. I went and did a degree I didn't know, and it ended up being my best selection by Inky Pinky Ponky, which is exactly what I did. And so I was taking it seriously, because I'd gotten A's for the first time, and I was like, wow, A's inaonjanga hivi. So that was settled. I partied. And so let's fast forward now to, I've gotten on to radio. As much as I was partying, I was still what you'd call a good girl. I have no scandals anywhere, because I took care of myself. I watched what I did, who I did it with, and as long as it was for me, and back then, which is not what I see now when people are partying now, we used to take care of each other. So the neighbors I had, we would hang out together. In fact, and our brothers would be around us. Like, we used to really take care of each other.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, the brother I follow, for him and his friends, they brought all their younger siblings and said, if you want to go out, you're going out with us, where we can see you, where we're with you. So they were the ones teaching us how to drink, but while they're there, you get what I mean? And so that's how I would say I did maintain being relatively a good girl in an era where it could have gone south. Remember, we had no mobile phones, so nobody could come and say, Uliona. We were just, if you were there, you saw. If you were not there, you don't know. Yeah. And so then fast forward to getting on to radio. Now, I say it's a blessing that I got on when I was older, as opposed to what I had initially wanted. Because remember, it took me 5 years since I graduated to get in. I graduated in 2000. I got on to radio October 2005 at Capital for a few months. Then I started at KISS December of 2005 in the newsroom, and then I started on the rush hour in 2006 August, right? And so in that period of time, I had understood how important it is to be a radio host, and what it was about, that you're talking to a nation. I had understood. And then that's when social media was not yet. No, social media wasn't there yet. It was magazines. The Pulse and such people were starting to write.
Yes.
And so for me, I knew the way I was raised, I shall not be caught anywhere doing anything that is not acceptable in Mrs. Mumo's house. It's not happening. So I never wanted people to know what I look like. So I hid. I didn't go for functions for so long. Eventually, of course, it becomes a need of the job. You know, the brand you're representing wants you there, so you have to go. And when you go, I would make sure that I'm decent, because that matters to me. I'll be in the right place at the right time. And when the cameras came, because that time they would take photos of you. Let's say I was giving a story and then I said, and then they would now write a bubble and write something that obviously you did not say because they didn't hear it. And then, but people read it and believe it. And you see, everyone was reading the papers then, because we didn't have anything else than the World Wide Web. And it was still something that was not accessible for many people.
Yes.
So if they read it in the paper that a picture was taken and someone, they would believe it. So I was very cautious, very, very, very careful about how am I representing our family, because that's what it was. How am I representing our family? How am I being viewed? And because I got in at 30, now getting into the primetime show, I was old enough to know the difference between having fun and being a responsible person. And so I never crossed lines. All I did was I really partied a lot. And the fast forward to, I got in at 30, I left at 40, and when I left, I went through at 40, was it 41? Yeah, must have been 41. Yes, it was 41. I met someone at a club. I'd never talked to anyone who I've not been introduced to. As a rule, I will not easily give a stranger time to talk to me. You know how guys say, we met at a bus stop, we fell in love. Oh, catch me another day. Because I already grew up in an era where I was afraid of what people are gonna say, what people are gonna do, what do people want. And I'd already seen people with bad intentions because you're famous, right? I'd already witnessed people who will talk to my co-host to talk to me, or set up a plan we meet just because they want to sleep with me. Yeah. Really? And then you get to the date and you listen to the way this date is going, say, I'm just going to the washroom. Yeah. I'm gone. Because I can tell. So that there's something here. So those are, some of the things. One thing I am is completely aware. That's a gift that God has given me, of discernment. I have the gift of discernment. I can look and I can tell you, this person is not good. This person's intentions are not good. This person, I know God has given me that gift. And it was there even before I knew that it is a gift called discernment. So I could tell when somebody's intentions are wrong. So I grew up with a very cautious kind of atmosphere, and I'd protect myself a lot from anything that didn't feel right. Meaning, in the back of my mind, the principles of God were still there somewhere. They were still there, even though I was not actively participating. Anyway, 41 comes, and I did a big 40th birthday. So when I turned 41, my friends who had been part of helping me prepare the party are like, you can't have done such a big bash and then now we are just going to sleep. I'm like, imagine you guys, I'm still tired from last year because organizing that party was hard. They say, no, we're going to, at least let's go for dinner. We're going to go for dinner. And so like 20 girls go for dinner. Then they're like, no, we're going out. And I'm like, I want to go home. They're like, there's nothing. So we go to a club and a guy approaches me. And that day, I do not know. I was like, okay, sawa, let's talk. We talk. We exchange numbers. First of all, he was slurring. I don't even know where my mind was. I don't know what was going on in my head that day. I could already see red flags. But I chose to think they were pink. I mean, that's all I can say. Because how? I gave the guy my number and then we started talking. But guess what? Every person who I ever dated or went on a date with, I'd ask them, what's your relationship with God?
For real?
Every single person. Because it mattered to me that you actually know God and you've been to a church.
Yes.
And you know that is somebody you should revere. People used to find it very strange. We met in the club, but I'm asking you, so do you go to church? Do you have a relationship with God? The guy's like, yeah. Because I think he was so shocked. So of course he just said, yeah, which he lied or whatever. And I asked him, which church? Which church do you go to? Please note, sija kuanga nikienda church except for Christmas, Easter, and special occasion. But it mattered. How? I don't know.
Because maybe you had the desire.
I had already, because I was born again at 13. So maybe it was still there. And so I asked, and he says, yeah, I go to church. I go to Parklands Baptist. I said, very good. How often do you go? It's very important. Mi siendi, lakini namwambia wewe lazima uende kanisa. So hii mambo ya kwenda out Saturday uache. Ndio uende kanisa. Na mi siendi. But namwambia. Anyway, and so we saw each other for a little bit, and then it became a bit weird. And me, I don't do well with people ghosting. Israel, if you don't want to see me or you don't feel like talking to me, just tell me, by the Kalekye umenibo, and I'm taking a time out. I'm like, what? Yeah. Okay. Are you going to tell me? No. Okay. But kuniacha hapo malights. Ay. Si muniue. Muniue tu. I don't like it. I don't like when people don't communicate. I'm a communicator, so just say it's your truth. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. So tusikosane, Anyway, and so after he ghosted me shortly after I'd lost my cousin. And he sent me some money to support, the funeral. And then he had his mom who was unwell and needed to go to India for some surgery. Yeah. And so we changad. And I sent money. And then soon after that, he ghosts me. So I'm wondering, nini you boys, Sasa? I thought we were going on a good trajectory. We're getting to know each other. This is like 3 months in. And he ghosts me after a night of an afternoon where we were supposed to meet, so that he meets my friends. And he says they've gone to check out some land. He'll be back, and then he'll come where we are at some evening restaurant thing. And he doesn't show up. That kind of ghosting is bad. Yes. And then his phone, he's not picking. Then it goes off. I said, oh my God, this guy could have had an accident, because I know he was drinking. What is that? And then, because after that, of course, now I'm looking for him. I called the only friend he knows. The next day, the guy said, no, he's fine. Okay, we came back. He went to drink over here. Then I know he went home. I saw his car when I was passing. I was so upset. I was like, this is nonsense. And of course, I tell him off, like, you cannot stand me up when you're supposed to come and meet my friends. And then you don't speak. I think you're dead. And so that kind of just silence. 2 months later, he calls. So I'm looking at the phone like, hi. And then he says, I know I haven't talked to you in a long time. I'm really sorry. I just wanted to tell you, thank you for your support for my mom, but she died. I'm like, Allah? To me, what? It was so, like, I could tell this person is not okay. And I really have compassion for anybody who's lost someone, because, like, the death of my cousin really hit me and my family very hard. And so I said, okay, where are you? I'm at home. We're still waiting for the body to come from India, and all this stuff needs to be done. I say, okay, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna call one of your friends and find out how to come. And he says, in fact, one of my friends is coming that way to pick up a tent, so at least he can pick you up. So may I go? I shop a few things, tea stuff, And I say, I'm only going to visit because mtu amefiliwa, and that is the last. I'm not going to talk to this person because bado alikuwa na bad manners. Yeah. Oh, Israel. Hey. Nilifika. Now me, I'm raised in a home where we know how to do things at functions. Yes. If there is a death, where is the pastor? Wapi wa mama wa kanisa? Nani anapika chai? Nini? Tent imewekwa nini? Like, and I remember I told you I have events. I know how to panga events. Yes. Do I get there? Okay, tent ndio hiyo. Okay, I can see some snacks. There's some other ladies who've come, and they're kind of showing me how they're the ones in the house, and I'm like, I really don't care. I just want to be here for one day. But then what hit me was nobody spoke. No mamas came, and the boys, his friends, they just sat and were drinking in the tent. Nilikaa nikaangalia hii story. Nikasema, hey, something is wrong here. I asked him, didn't you tell me you go to Parklands Baptist? So where are they? Because your mom is being ferried from India and she used to live in Nakuru. Your sisters, they live in the States. I get that. But you cannot tell me that there's nobody in your family or anywhere, or the church that you say you go to, who you can call and say, you have a funeral and we need to pray. Your mom was a prayerful woman. His mom was born again. That he had told me. So he tells me, help me find the pastors there, because I would go, but I'm not frequent enough to be called a member enough to know anybody at that church. And that's why I think getting to a church where it is important to know the leadership, it's important to be involved in a fellowship, so that when something happens, there are people who are there for you. He had no one. His friends are off, they come, they say, hey, pole maze, and they sit down and they drink. That's it. So that was not working for me. So I say, okay, fine, let me find someone who I think went to Parklands Baptist, because I go to Nairobi Baptist, and try. And if maybe we get a pastor or somebody who can come,
yes,
nitakuwa nimewacha poa. Do you remember msitaki kuwapo? So the next day I call Njesh, Joshua Cabs, the late Cabs was musician.
Yes.
I call Njesh and I tell her, Njesh, do you go to Bapo? Then she tells me, me, I don't go to Bapo. I tell her what has happened, that there's this guy, friend of mine, mama's died, blah, blah, blah. She tells me, now, actually, while working at Groove, there's a pastor who is young and open-minded, because I told her his history, he drinks, he parties and whatever. So even I don't know which pastor will come, and it won't be difficult because his friends are going to sit and drink. And she tells me, there's this young pastor, he connects with young people. He's understanding of the way that most of them are in the way of the world, and he would be able to help you. Can I connect you? I said, please help me, because the pastor I know of K3C that I have called, he was called Pastor Ken, Kumbe had transitioned to go and launch a church in Australia. So when I'm calling him, his phone is not going through. I'm wondering what's wrong. When I'm texting him, it's at night during the day in Australia, so it's not going through. So who am I connected to? Pastor George. So Pastor George calls me immediately, and he's like, wow, Kalekye Mumo, hi, And I'm like, I don't know who this pastor is. And he tells me, actually, I am assigned at K3C Kilelesha Covenant Community. I say, oh, good, because I was looking for Pastor Ken. He says, oh, no, Pastor Ken has now gone. So our lead pastor is Pastor David Obuki. I say, oh, I remember him, because my cousin used to go to that church, and they had officiated the funeral. But Pastor George was not around when that funeral was done. So he's the only one of that church I had not met. And so he tells me, fine, let's do this. You come, because obviously we have to tell the lead pastors, and then they can now send me with you, whether or not this is a member of the church.
Yeah.
And that is how my journey began with Pastor George. And we go, meet everyone, and he says, no problem, let's go. I remember that time I think my car was spoiled. So he tells me, don't worry, let's go pick my car from my wife. Pastor Pauline that time was working somewhere along this road, actually. And we pick the car, meet her, I meet his brother. They were running a pharmacy here on Gong Road. And then we go to the home in South B or South C, can't remember, South B. We go, we run, and we lead. Pastor tells me, so you'll sing. As if I know. So you'll do a bit of praise and worship. Me, I'm going, That time I have not actively been to church. It's going on 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what do I know? Well, I honestly, I'm trying to remember the songs we were singing at my cousin's funeral. Like, those are the most recent. Then pastor's like, don't worry, we'll print something. I'm going, what? Pastor George, I just met you, but you're asking for a lot. And somehow, because he's a capable God, I know I sang something. I can't remember what I sang. And, people sang, and I just said, it is one song. That is all I got. Yeah. That's all I got. And we did one song, and he did a sermonette, and then I introduced him to this guy, and they have a talk, and, we agree on certain things. That day was the day his mother's body was arriving, and that was what my issue was. Like, your mom is a woman of God, her body can't arrive, and there's no prayers which are had. Just flown all the way from India. She had gone on that trip with his cousin, a young girl, and she was obviously distraught. She's had to organize all this by herself, and she's barely 20, a really young girl. And so we first went to the mortuary. We did prayers there, received the body, and gave it into the mortuary, and then now went to the home, and then the meetings and whatever.
Yeah.
And so the aunties who were there, who have now been introduced to me and the pastor, they are very happy, because at least this must be the girlfriend now. This one, the way she's organizing things here, this one, she must be the one. And so they start telling me, now here, what are we going to do here? And I'm like, they're friends. They told me no, because the friends were doing nothing. They had no plan of how funeral, funeral,
yes.
You want to spend the least time possible. This is someone who you've spent money for a surgery that has gone wrong. So that's money. Then there's money for flying the body in. You still have to take the money, the body all the way to Ksumdala. You have to travel. There's so much. So the quicker you move, the better. Now, I've come from Fresh 2 months ago, done a funeral. So me, I have the whole template of where we'll get flowers, where we will talk to the guys for sound and what, who are the photographers. I had everything. And I mean everything. I had a file.
Mm-hmm.
So I removed my file, because now the aunties are saying here now. So, I saw this is a desperate situation that I can't leave. And I wanted to leave. And I know today that it is God who made me not leave that situation. And I stayed. Meanwhile, there are other girls who are into this guy. He's not dating any of them. Maybe he's had a thing with them. And they are now looking at me like they can cut me with their eyes. Because unajua saa umepewa heshia, ma-aunties.
Yeah.
Unakaa na ma-aunties wanakuambia hivi. I even chose the flowers for the wedding. And he said, no, you choose the shapes, the what. She liked this color, you choose. I did that. I went to speak to our pastors in the church that I used to go to, that I stopped going to at Nairobi Baptist, in the name of my family, for them to be allowed to do a Nairobi service in that church, because it's bigger. Me, I went and I sat there and I spoke to the pastor, and I used my parents' name. He says, but I don't see you. I said, yeah, I'm around. Very much around.
Yeah.
And then using the name of my parents, who I have not told my mother, I've not told her anything. And God's graces, they say, we don't normally host funeral services at our parish for non-members, but because of your parents, bring the people. So I take one of the relas, we agree, we do the service there. So obviously I'm coordinating with the church what songs are gonna be sung. I'm the one talking to the pastor. I'm the one doing all that. Pastor George that time unfortunately got ill, so he was not available. And so I do this because the church is bigger there. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing, see me, I'm saying, okay, now after this Nairobi service, nimemaliza. Oh, the auntie said, there's no way, after all you've done for us, there's no way you're not traveling with us. I said, traveling where? To Bondo. Who? You. I said, I don't have money. They bought me a Kenya Airways return flight. Next to him, seats next to him. We're going for the funeral. I went. The grandmother was waiting to receive me. It was a desperate situation. He had lost his dad a year ago. Then he's now lost his mom. He was the only boy. His sisters are in the States. They unfortunately couldn't travel because they didn't have papers. So he was doing this literally alone. And some of his aunties and uncles were estranged. So it was a very desperate situation. So I find myself in Bondo, running the whole show of how we are going to ushers, nanny, and we bury. And then we fly back to Nairobi, just the two of us, because the aunties are staying. And it's just an amicable conversation. You know, now these are people who had kosanad. I've come back to do the funeral, so we don't even know where we are.
Yeah.
If there is even a we. And there are other chicks who are trying to show me sisi ndio tuko. And I'm like, Nisa wakueni hapo. But him is like, no, you come here. No, you come. He wants me to be the one to tell him what to do and to do and to do. I'll go home, I'll cook special food, bring, so that I make sure he eats, because he if he doesn't, he will not ever eat, you know. And we come back to Nairobi after the funeral. His friend picks us up from the airport. We sit to eat somewhere. One of those girls who didn't make it to the funeral in Shags comes, happened to be in that restaurant, and her sister stopped me on the way to the washroom and started someing me how I have interrupted her. I'm trying to take her place. I've broken her heart. I don't know. Me, I'm going, yeah. Me rasiju niko huku aje. Sasa nitadu. Anyway, to cut a long story short, after that day, when I got home, that was the last day that I had from him. Israel, that was the last day I had from him. He texted me to say, thank you for all I've done. Thank you for supporting everything. We couldn't have done this funeral without you. The end. He ghosted me again.
What?
Completely. And you remember, me, I'm more worried of the fact that this person is alone. The relatives are in Shags or in the States. Who's going to be talking to him? I even thought he's going to do something to himself. And so I went even to his home. His car is there. The watchman is telling me he's there. He refused to open. Ayo day nilikunywa sana, by the way. Wacha tu niseme ukweli. Nilikunywa sana. Because I was like, what just happened? Even just forget the fact that there's an assumption of we'll be together. Even kuongea. Hey.
You felt used, yeah?
I felt used. I felt extremely, completely used. And that was a heartbreak and a half, because it was like, forget heartbreak your love, utter your friendship.
Yeah.
You know, in your friendship. And so Pastor George, after a few days, calls me and says, how was the funeral? Is everything well? How is he? I said, he's fine. Because how am I going to say he's not talking to me? At that time, I still have hope. And this continues for weeks. Nadanganya pasi. Namdanganya tu. Ilifika point nikamwambia sasa Pastor George, no, now this guy stopped talking. He's like, what are you talking about? Me, I thought you guys are about even to tell me you're getting married soon. The way I saw, I said, we? Mera hiyo day sijui nilikuwa huko aje. Nilienda kusaidia, and it became my burden, and then he abandoned me. And not to say that I thought that I was helping him so that we'd be in a relationship. No. That even I'd get to understand why he ghosted me the first time. Just that. I got nothing. And that became the heartbreak that led me back to walk with Pastor George. And he was like, Pasi, I told him my life, how it's been, and all the story I've given you. And he said, it's fine. I'll just be checking in on you. We meet and we go. We used to meet at Jaffrey's and we walk. We wear our walking shoes and we do laps, exercise laps. We walk and talk. And he told me atasta kuambia ukuje church. And I used to live near K3C. He told me, ile day utasikia ukuje, utakuja. And one day I went. And then I started attending church. And I started liking it. And we're still doing our walks and our check-ins. And that's why that having fellowship is so important. That fellowship helped me to start see life differently. And then, of course, he introduced me to other people. Elder Mwesh and his wife were at that church at the time. And before I know it, I'm actually happy to go to church again. On my own terms, not because of my parents, not because of... I'm happy to go to church. I found a place where there's love. And October 1st of... we're talking about... That was 2017. The same year, October 1st. So this heartbreak and everything has happened between March and... I think his mom died maybe in June or July. And so by October 1st, I gave my life to Christ. Pastor George wasn't even in church, so it's not about him. And let me tell you, it's not like I hadn't heard this call many times. It was familiar. My problem at the time was, what will my friends say? You know, how will I keep my radio job and love God at the same time? I had many excuses for many years.
Yeah.
But I finally said, I need peace, and I need real love that will not hurt. I cannot do another heartache. And that is how I gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
Yeah.
Up to now,
I
you're
love
serving
the
God.
Lord, and I'm serving the Lord.
Oh my.
And loving it.
That is so amazing.
Yeah, man. And he worked on me. I stopped drinking. Everything changed in my life. And anyone who knew me then, even followed me on the socials, and now they know I'm different. I lost followers who would be there for the hype and the madness, and now it was gone.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I'm fine and I'm happy. That's what matters.
I know there are people who say that Kalekye is just going to be there for a few years and then
wengi hata wa kanisa walikuwa nasema ati anasema ameokoka, acha tuone. And you know, this is the thing, eh?
Yeah.
Your walk with Christ is your walk. It's personal, and you cannot lie to God. He knows you. He knows your heart, and you can only pretend for so long. I'm happy, and I know what God has done for me. I know and have seen. And of course, he has taken me to the bottom to show me who he is, to give me back who I am.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't mine in the first place.
Yes.
I've only understood that by understanding him. Yeah.
Wow, that is so amazing. Thank you so much, Kalekye. And because of this, actually, we are going to just extend a little bit, just to pray with our listeners. But I want to just share a word of encouragement, because someone is saying here, Kalekye angekuwa Gen Z, angekuwa amecommit suicide, because actually what you went through was very, very, very tough. So I know someone is listening, probably is heartbroken.
Yeah.
They invested so much, probably in a relationship, not even a relationship, even in a business, or maybe in many things, and they never got that return, you know.
And that's what I think today.
Yes.
I find difficult, because I keep asking myself, because the parent who has children in their 20s today is my age.
Yeah.
They're late 40s going to 50, or in their 50s. And when I think about our parenting skills, we were parented roughneck. Like I told you, it was rough. And so we became, our babies must not go through, So we've been soft. So I must say there's a lot of softness. But with that softness, there also has to be a backing of understanding your identity. And I feel like that's where the problem is. When you don't know your identity, that you think that the identity is in the person.
Yes.
Who should love you because you love them.
Yes.
Because that's how we think. And especially as women, me, because I love you, must love me back. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that in itself would have caused suicide if I didn't know who I was founded
Yes.
in.
Yeah.
But the thing I know, I know that I thank the Lord for, is I know my identity. I know I love my life. With me not being born again or not, that's something I knew. And I knew that I treasure it. And I knew that pain will come and it will go. It will be horrible.
Yeah.
But siezi jua mtu. No. So that I know. That the person who's written that, it is true.
Yes.
It is true. Yeah, and I think I'm trying to think of leaning on God's word and leaning on the fact that he says that he will never leave you nor forsake you.
Yes.
Is such a strong testament to the fact that you can call God out and say, hey, you said you will never leave me or forsake me, Uko.
Yeah.
Because that's what Moses did. When Moses was given this big responsibility, and remember, Moses he's been a murderer. He has, run away from home. He's, gone and now become a shepherd. He's like, amepelekwa chini.
Yeah.
And then God reveals himself to him. And he's giving him all these big, grandiose things to go and do in a home where he was a castaway because he killed and left. And now he's coming to say, actually, those people that we were hurting then, I am for them. You know what I mean? That's really difficult. So for me, when I look at Moses and I look at his story and I look at how he still used to call out God. In fact, I find Moses a very interesting character. He used to tell God, where are you now? You've left me. What's wrong with you? Where are you? Is a point of knowing that if he promised it, ask him to show up. And God is not a man that he should lie. He will show up. He will show up. And if we look at Psalms 25 verse 5, it says, lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are God of my salvation. On you I will wait all day. If I have to wait for him to show up, I will wait. If I have to wait for him to give me my husband, because I know he didn't put that desire in my heart for nothing. Age is notwithstanding.
Yes.
Look at Sarah. I know the world will not tell me different. And so to that person who is like, my gosh, how did you go on that heartbreak? God promises you that he will take your ashes and give you beauty.
Amen. It's
a promise. He will give you beauty for ashes. For me, that's what he did. Romans 8:28 says that all things will work out for the good of those who love the Lord and are called by his name. It will, but according to his time. The key is to be patient and have faith, for without faith we can't do anything. And I know it gets hard. I'm not saying that I'm perfect or that I don't go through, oh my gosh, I go through the doldrums, but I have a hope, and our hope is in Christ, that his burden is lighter than mine.
Yeah.
And that reminds me that if somebody, a human being, and remember this has happened twice, I got hurt by my mom, I left him, I left Christ, and I left. I wasted so much time. If you ask me that, in fact, most of the time, that's my pain, is that I feel like I wasted so much time. To have been born again at 13 and only to come back to find who God is at 41. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Because by 16, I had said, forget about it. That's a very long time. So anybody who's listening today, and either you are born again or you still hear the voice of God, because I used to hear it. Then I used to say, but my friends, I would give excuses because I like the life of the world. I'm telling you today, there is no greater love than the love of God. There is no guy who can love you like God. Israel, I know you love your wife, but believe me, you cannot love her as much as God loves her. That's just the truth.
True.
And she cannot love you as much as God loves you. Right? That for me is where my identity is. And once I identified that, everything solidified. And so when people ask me, hey, nasi umekuwa single for long, unasurviving aje? Imagine me, I'm okay. Because why? God loves me and I love him. That's my number one man.
Yeah.
Right? And we are good. And we are good until he shows me someone who can show me love that is close to his. But he remains at one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even before you pray, because we might forget to say this and to share this. So there are those guys who really love what you do and they really want to also to learn the art of media and everything.
Yeah.
How can they get in touch with you on social media?
Okay, so on social media, on all platforms, I'm at Kalekye Mumo, and currently we're running a program that is, I call the Own Your Mic program under my company KM Network, which has a radio training, has a voiceover training, and there'll be a public speaking training. We just started the radio training for the first class, which is a standard 0 to 1 year experience. And there will be more coming. There's a voiceover training. We're currently collecting free consultation opportunities where you can register. If you go to my socials, you will see either Kalekye Mumo or KM Network 254, and you can follow. You can get all the content there, and you can register. Especially now for the voiceover training, I'm offering free consultation where you record a certain script that I've shared, and I'll be able to tell you what you're doing with your voice and what you can do better, and if you can sign up for the class, because I don't want to take somebody's money and I can hear that your voice is not going to work for this class. So that's what I am doing with regards to media. I'm doing more and more trainings just so that we bring up more people who are either going to be on radio or going to create podcasts that have value and have a good sound. Let's believe and pray.
Yes.
Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this amazing evening, Lord. We honor you. We exalt your mighty name. Jehovah God, you, oh God, are above everything. You are our creator. You are Alpha. You are Omega, Jehovah God. And you knew that this day would come, this evening, that we would be sitting here on the 18th of April 2024, sharing a testimony that will go to touch and move your people, the ones that you are calling to your own. Jehovah God, we are speaking to those who are listening to us right now and reminding them, Jehovah God, that there is a declaration of faith that they can make, that they can call you Jehovah and you will answer them. Just like I was tired of a loveless and painful life and seeking peace, Lord, that there is somebody who is seeking you, that they will be no longer stuck to drugs or addictions of the world, Jehovah God, because you, oh God, are the sweetest, and the only thing that we need to be addicted to you is you. Jehovah God, I pray for those who are listening to us and they are downcast right now and thinking that their life can no longer be the same, Jehovah God. I speak to them the words in Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Fear nobody. Fear nothing. Knowing that the Lord is by your side is good enough to keep you going. Jehovah God, I call upon those who are sitting and wondering what next, where are we going to go, that if they may just have faith in you, that Lord, you are Jehovah Jireh over everything, the provider, that you, oh God, are the one to seek to. And just like Moses used to come and ask, Lord, what do I do now? Lord, where are you? Let us be bold in our prayers. Let us revere you, but with boldness come to you, because your word has told us time and time again that we shall seek you and we shall find you. We shall ask and we shall receive, but we must believe. Jehovah God, let those who are struggling with all their financial issues right now be encouraged, Lord God, that you are Jireh over them, that you know exactly what they are going through, and that you, oh God, will come through for them like you always do, that they are here not by mistake, that they are listening not by mistake, because you have a plan for them. And Jehovah God, that you will see it through for them, and there shall be testimonies. For all those who are ill this evening, Jehovah God, may you be Jehovah Rapha over them. May you go to touch them with a special healing touch, that they may feel no more pain. Jehovah God, we know that illnesses come, but Lord, you are the ultimate healer. Lord, heal them. Lord, heal them. Touch them and heal them. Jehovah God, this evening we come just seeking your word, seeking you to fill us with some encouragement to go on, because Lord, you have the final say over anything and everything in our lives. Jehovah God, everything that you have taught us is that it shall be well with you if we have faith in you. Lord, the word faith keeps coming and it keeps coming, that there's somebody who needs to just be encouraged and have hope in you this evening, Jehovah. I pray for hope. I pray for hope. I pray for hope over you who is feeling downcast right now. The Spirit says that you need to have hope. Do not give up. Do not do anything to yourself. Let the Lord who created you, who knew you from the foundations of the earth, who knew you as you were being created in your mother's womb, who knew your beginning from your end, let he be the one who has the final say. Have hope. Have faith. You who is downcast, may the Lord touch you tonight. May he send his angels concerning you. May he give you a special covering, and may you be restored in the name of Jesus. I thank you for this opportunity to be here, Lord, to be in this station where they are embodiment of speaking and spreading your word, Jehovah God. May you go to bless Israel, his family, this station, its management, and everyone that is concerned with making this station work, Jehovah God. May they see favor. May they see your favor in everything they do, and that they continue to do the work that you have called them to do. I thank you for this evening. I thank you for all the listeners, everyone who's been able to hear us and who will hear us in the following dispersion of links that will go on, Jehovah God. We thank you and we honor you, for it is in Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
96.9 FM, Pearl Radio.